Hey, what's happening? I want to do a book review on this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. So this book is by John Mark Comer, and he shares his transformational yet still ongoing journey from being a hurried and stressed out mega church leader to a peaceful and fulfilled small church pastor. I loved this book. I'm personally always in a tension between like fast-paced hurry and designing an enjoyable rhythm of life. It's this tension I always live in. So a few years ago, my husband and I intentionally started slowing down and making space in our days and our weeks to enjoy life, as well as have room to minister to people when they need it, and not being so busy that we are unable to love and serve them. This was an intentional decision we made, and it's been good for our lives. And let me just say, this is not easy for someone like me. I love bouncing from here to there. I enjoy running. I enjoy having things to do. I just love like bouncing between meetings and people and tasks. I think that's why I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are naturally hurried people. There just aren't enough hours in the day, and there's always something else to do. But I want to enjoy moments. I want to walk slowly. I want to enjoy life and be present. So this book really, really hit home for me. It challenged me. It made me desire a slower lifestyle, which I don't even know if you can tell by my speaking. I don't naturally gravitate towards the slow. I'm fast, but I will say, I think everybody should read this. Now, I will say a disclaimer. He is a pastor, like I mentioned, so he talks a lot about Jesus and refers to the Bible quite a bit. But seriously, the lessons and practices in this book can be life-changing. And the funny thing is, it's always ongoing. It's not like you do these 3 things and boom, you are good to go. He's really easy to read. He breaks the book into 4 sections. The first section is all about the problem, hurry. So he says we live in a culture that's excessively fast. There's an excessive haste of pathological busyness, and where the only way to live and the only thing we can do is just to keep up a pace of having too much to do. We have an endless to-do list. Hurry, hurry, hurry. He quotes John Ortberg, who said, "We just skim our lives instead of actually living them." That quote stopped me. Like, I put the book down and just thought about that. Am I skimming life or am I living life? He actually goes into history, which I love that kind of stuff. So he talks about how before the sun would set our rhythms of work and rest, but then once the clock was invented, it put us under dominion of a machine, which, let's be honest, that machine is run by our employers. So who's our new taskmaster? It's not the sun, it's not those natural bodily rhythms, it's people now and this machine. A century ago, the average person slept 11 hours per night. We get 8 hours, or do we? It's 3 less hours every single night. And this was really interesting. The Harvard Business Review conducted a study on the change of social status in America. It used to be that leisure was a sign of wealth, so playing tennis and sailing, having a lunch out. Now busyness is the sign of wealth, and we hear it when we talk to people. How are you doing? So busy. Hey, you look really busy. Everything's going well. And what do we do with our extra time now? We often waste it on our phones. The smartphone has stolen. I mean, we spend hours on our phone each day. The average iPhone user touches their phone 2,617 times per day. How many hours do you spend on your phone? I know for me, I am an iPhone user. It tells me sometimes it's 7 hours, and albeit some of it is work, but a lot of it isn't. It's mindless scrolling. Interestingly enough, psychologists and mental health professionals are now talking about an epidemic of the modern world called hurry sickness, and they label it a disease. Here's the definition, and let me know if this rings a bell. A behavioral pattern characterized by continual rushing and anxiousness. What are some symptoms of hurry sickness? Moving from one checkout to another line because it looks shorter or faster. I know I do that all the time. Counting cars in front of you and getting into the shorter lane, whether you're at a stoplight or a drive-through. Multitasking to a point where you forget one of the tasks. I think I have hurry sickness because I do all those things and I actually do them multiple times a day. And I love this quote that Comer puts into the book. It's from Thomas Merton. And he says, "The rush and the pressure of the modern life is a pervasive form of contemporary violence." That's crazy. Like, just think about the word violence, contemporary violence. So what's the problem? Comer explains that it's not only horrible for our health, and he kind of talks about heart disease and stuff like that, but it kills relationships, it kills wisdom, and it really wreaks havoc on our souls. But thankfully, he does not leave us there with the problem, because he goes into part 2, the solution. And now, if you're like me, you probably think the solution is more time. Well, it's not, he says, because let's be honest, we already read those iPhone stats. We know what we would do if we had more time. We'd be playing on our phone and scrolling endlessly through social media. So he says the solution is to slow down and simplifies our life around what really matters. I really resonated with that. We have time, we have plenty of time. The average American spends an average of 705 hours on social media each year. And guess how many hours TV takes up? 2,737 hours per year is spent watching TV. Actually, the guy, the Netflix head, said that his competition, it's not other things like Disney Plus or Prime, it is sleep. So again, Comer says time is not the answer. More time is not the answer. And as he's a pastor, he talks about how Jesus accomplished so much in his short life, yet he was never in a rush. And I read the Bible, I have noticed that he's always walking. He always has time for people. So Comer calls us to follow Jesus and the patterns he set. So the next part is part 3, and he gives us 4 practices to unhurrying your life. Now, as someone who likes a checklist, who likes to know exactly what I should do to help my problem, this is really, really helpful. And I didn't like any of them, but I have started incorporating them, and they're really helpful. So in this section, he writes about 4 solutions and practices that will help us slow down and enjoy life. As I read them, I was challenged and convicted and excited to adapt these practices. So the first one was silence and solitude. Time to sit and think is really important for our lives. And it's pretty much non-existent at this point. When we're bored, we reach for our phones and we start scrolling. And there's just always excessive noise. There's internal and external noise that always vie for our attention. The second practice he mentioned was Sabbath, a true day of rest. The word literally means to stop. Practicing Sabbath will help you have contentment, rest, clarity, peace, deep relationships, time alone. I personally practice this. I do this every Saturday afternoon to Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, and I love it. The third practice is simplicity, which another one that I totally loved and I think we should start practicing. So after the war, the tycoons of big business, politicians, the madmen of New York City wanted to make an economy out of consumerism. So listen to this quote by Paul Mazur of the Lehman Brothers. "We must shift America from a needs-based culture to a desire culture. People must be trained to desire to want new things, even before the old has been entirely consumed. We must shape a new mentality. Man's desires must overshadow his needs." That was like a crazy quote that you think would come from like this evil henchman, but it was an advertiser. So we live in this type of society. Our homes are twice the size of what they were in the 50s, and our families are half the size. We are filling up our homes with stuff. And yet we are the most discontent people the world's ever seen. Again, this wreaks havoc on us. Greg Easterbrook noted that adjusting for population growth, 10 times as many people in the Western nations today suffer from unipolar depression or an unremitting bad feelings without a specific cause than they did a century ago. Americans and Europeans have more of everything except happiness. So he calls us to contentment with this book. Now this was the most interesting thing for me. A research project run by Dr. Daniel Kahneman and Dr. Angus Deaton found that your overall well-being does rise with your income, but only to a point. After that, you plateau or decline. So this is the quote. "No matter where you live, your emotional well-being is as good as it's going to get at $75,000. It's like you hit some sort of a ceiling and you can't get emotional well-being much higher just by having money." I thought that was fascinating because that's just the middle class. It's not millionaires, it's not billionaires. $75,000 is attainable to most people. And we live though in a society that it's never enough. We just always want a little bit more. The next dollar will make me happy. All I need is just this little thing and then I'll be happy. So he, of course, ties it into Hurry because that's what the book is about. And he does a quote by Alan Fadling, which says, "The drive to possess is an engine for hurry." So his solution is contentment. He says that contentment is the key, and it draws back to Jesus, who says life does not consist in abundance of possessions. Comer challenges us to live a life of simplicity and minimalism. So choose, or like, think about what you're purchasing. Do you need it? What is the implication of this thing? And he's not saying live in poverty and live with nothing, don't buy anything, but he's just saying, you know what, maybe consider living with less. So another quote that he wrote, this whole book, like, you could literally tweet every sentence. It's amazing. He says, an inward reality that can be seen in an outward lifestyle is choosing to leverage time, money, talents, and passions towards what matters most. So the practice is this: ask yourself if you need the thing. What's the true cost of the thing? It's time, it's money, who knows? Cultivate an appreciation for simple pleasures, a nice cup of coffee, a walk in the woods. Anyway, I loved that section. So the last practice, this is the one I struggle with the very most. Ask anybody who knows me. It's slowing down. He challenges us to move at an easier pace and place yourself in positions where you simply have to wait. Get in the slow lane on purpose. Show up early for an appointment without your phone. Come to a full stop at stop signs. Just practice slowing down. We don't have to text and drive. We can text when we get there. At the end of the book, he explains how this has helped his quality of life improved. He explains how he reorganized his life around 3 goals, which was slowing down, simplification of his life around the practices of Jesus, and living from a center of abiding. This book was incredibly challenging. Even to read it, I had to sit aside time. I had to put my phone down. I had to, like, naturally put these practices into place. At the end of each chapter, I really did absorb. I just put it down and just absorbed what he was saying, and I contemplated what I just read. It was good. And as I read through the book, I tried to apply the practices and lessons to my life. I slowed down. I went into long lines, and I was cool about it. I put my phone down more often than I normally would. I actually even put on the do not distract feature. So it was a really good reminder to stop and enjoy the moment. It's a good reminder to say no, and that no is a complete sentence. And it was a good reminder to breathe deep and really take, like, it really was like, wow, what really matters? I 100% recommend this book to everybody. Honestly, it was 10 out of 10. It will improve your life. It improved mine. And like I said at the beginning, it's one of those things where you're constantly practicing it. It's not like you read the book, you put in the 4 practices, boom, everything's good. Every day, it's kind of like calling. It's kind of like you wake up and decide to live a slower life, to live a simple life, especially in this crazy season. And maybe that's why I love that chapter so much about simplicity. So anyway, I think you guys would do well with this book if you want to read it. Well, this is not mine, so I can't let you borrow it. I borrowed it from my pastor. And yeah, so sorry, that was a really long book review, but it was a really good book, and I couldn't pick just a few things to talk about. I could have read this book to you. So anyway, I'm not gonna make this go longer than it already is. So here you go. Put it on your Christmas list and just buy it if you don't receive it this year, because it's that good. All right. Thanks so much for listening. Have a good one.